Hello and welcome back. In the previous section, we learned about strings. In this section, we are going to learn about loops and conditionals. We are going to start this lecture with if, elif, else statements. There are situations in life when we have to make decisions based on certain circumstances. Similarly, in programming also, there are situations where we need to make some decisions, and based upon these decisions, we will be executing a certain block of code. To achieve decision making in Python, we have if, elif, else statements. These are also known as conditional statements in Python. So let us start with the if statements in Python. The syntax for if statement is if condition statement. The program evaluates the condition and will execute the statements only and only if the condition is true. But if the condition comes out to be false, the statements are not executed. Please do note that while writing blocks of code in Python, we need to be careful of the indentation. Indentation refers to adding white space before a statement. Without indentation, Python does not know which statement belongs to which block. Let us take an example and understand if statement better. We have a variable called x. X is equal to 3. If x greater than 0, print x is greater than 0. We indent before print function in the example. What if we want to do something else if the condition is false? Here comes the else statement. We can use the else statement with if statement to execute a block of code when the condition is false. Let us take an example. X is equal to 5 if x modulo 2 is equal to 0. Print x is divisible by 2. Else, print x is not divisible by 2. This results x is not divisible by 2. Else statement is executed in the example as the condition specified was false. We can also work with multiple conditions using if, elif, else statements. Let us take an example and understand better. We have a variable called y. Y is equal to 34. If y is less than 10, print y is less than 10. Elif y greater than 10 and y less than 30, print y is between 10 and 30. Else, print y is greater than 30. This results y is greater than 30. We learned about if, elif, else statements. In this lecture, we are going to learn about for and while loops. Now, there are so many tasks which we perform in our day-to-day life in a recurring manner. Similarly, to execute such kind of recurring tasks in programming, we use loops. Loops are used to repeat a specific block of code as and when required. Python provides two ways for executing the loops. Both the ways provide similar basic functionality, but they differ in their syntax and condition checking time. So let us start with the for loop. The for loop in Python is used to iterate over a sequence like a list, tuple, string, or dictionary. The syntax of for loop is for I in sequence, body of loop, where I is the variable that takes the value of the item inside the sequence on each iteration. Let us take an example and understand for loop better. Let us define a list called A. A is equal to Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Chennai. For city in A, print city. This results as Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Chennai. We can also use conditional statements with for loop. Let us take an example and understand the concept better. Let's have a list S, where S is equal to 2, 6, 5, 8, 3, and condition to print the numbers of the list which are not divisible by 2. For I in S, if I not divisible by 2 equal to 0, print I not divisible by 2. This results 5 not divisible by 2, 3 not divisible by 2. Next we have the while loop. The while loop in Python is used to iterate over a block of code as long as the test condition is true. We generally use this loop when we do not know the number of items to iterate beforehand. The syntax of while loop is while test underscore condition body of loop. In the while loop, the test condition is checked first. The body of the loop is entered only if the test condition evaluates to be true. After one iteration, the test condition is checked again. This process continues until the test condition evaluates to be false. Let us take an example and understand the while loop better. Let us declare a variable called I equal to 1. While I less than equal to 5, print I equal to I plus 1. The variable I is initialized to 1. While the value of I is less than equal to 5, Python is asked to print its value, and the value of I is incremented every time the loop is executed. We can combine while loop and conditional statements as we have done in the case of for loop as well. So let us take an example and understand how while loop works with conditional statements. I equal to 1. While I less than 5, print I plus is equal to 1. Else, print I is no longer less than 6. The else statement here runs a block of code once when the condition is no longer true. And now it's time for a ninja tip. Suppose we have a loop that is not implemented yet, but we want to implement it in the future. We cannot leave the body of the loop empty because Python will give an error. So we use the pass statement to construct a body that does nothing. Let us take an example. For I in the range 2, 8, pass. Python will not give any error. We learned about the for and while loop. In this lecture, we are going to learn about the break and continue statements to alter the flow of a loop. Loops iterate over a block of code until the condition is false. But sometimes we would like to terminate the current iteration of the loop or even the whole loop without even checking the condition. So without any delay, let us jump in and we will be starting with the break statement. The break keyword is used to break out a for loop or a while loop. As soon as the condition is found to be true, the iteration stops. For I in the range 1, 10, if I is equal to 5, if I is equal to 5, break. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As the condition becomes true at I equal to 5, the iteration stops skipping all other iterations after 5. Now let us understand the continue statement. Using the continue statement, we can only skip the current iteration of the loop and continue with the next. Let us try to understand the execution of continue statement using the same loop that we used for understanding the break statement. For I in the range 1, 10, if I is equal to 5, continue. Once we execute this, Python prints out all the numbers from 1 to 9 as seen on the screen. Do note that number 5 is missing because at 5 the loop would skip the iteration and continue with the next iteration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we can see here in the output that the loop skipped the iteration where the condition was true, that is I equal to 5, and continued with all the iterations after that. Well, I really hope it was easy to understand the difference between the break and continue statements used within the loop to control their flow. Till then, have fun with loops.